you open up your Bibles with me to Exodus 25, please? We'll spend just a few minutes in Exodus 25. And we'll go all the way from 25 to the end of Exodus, really. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but we're going to read quite a bit tonight. While you're turning there, I'm always glad to hear the pages of your Bible turning. I'll give you a few minutes to get there. While you're turning there, I'll just go ahead and start on what we're looking at here. Exodus goes up until about chapter 19, when the children of Israel are standing before Mount Sinai, and they're about ready to get the law from God. Exodus 20 is the Ten Commandments. That's an important chapter, so file that away and remember it. And then Exodus 21, 22, 23 is called the Book of the Covenant. It's extra laws. So the Ten Commandments are moral things, principles that have to do with being right with God throughout all time. 21, 22, 23 is like if your ox gores your neighbor's ox, this is how you take care of it. Social laws, things like that. And then in Exodus 24, you have the actual covenant. This is where the Old Testament, the word testament means covenant. This is where the Old Testament becomes the Old Testament. Exodus 24, another chapter worth remembering. And then, so you know that stuff. We have the story of the Exodus, the plagues on Egypt, the law and the covenant that's given at Mount Sinai. And then you come to chapter 25, and except for one big hiccup in there, a few chapters, Exodus 25 all the way to Exodus 40 is instructions for building the tabernacle, and then Israel actually building the tabernacle. So it's kind of like this. God has said to his people, here's my law. The people say, we accept the terms of the covenant. We're going to enter into this agreement with you. And so the very next thing that happens, and it's a drawn out process, is, all right, then I'm going to have a place to stay. Build my tabernacle. And this is what it's going to look like. And how you're going to do it and all of that. So let's just start reading. Exodus 25. I'm going to start with verses 1 through 9. I think I should click here. There we go. That picture really should be bigger, because you should see the bronze laver and the altar of sacrifice at the door and all the poles in the outside. I'm pointing at my screen as if you all can see what I'm pointing at right now. The fence and the gates and all that stuff that go around. It should include all of that, but this is just the tabernacle. This is what we're talking about right now. Start in verse 1. Exodus 25 and verse 1. The Lord said to Moses, speak to the people of Israel, that they may take for me a contribution. From every man whose heart moves him, you shall receive the contribution for me. And this is the contribution that you shall receive from them: gold, silver, and bronze, blue and purple, scarlet yarns, fine twine, linen, goat's hair, tanned ram skin, goat skin, acacia wood, oil for the lamps, spices for the anointing oil, for the fragrant incense, onyx stones, the stones for setting, for the ephod, for the breastpiece. And then let them make me a sanctuary, that I may dwell in their midst, exactly as I show you concerning the pattern of the tabernacle and all its furniture. So you shall make it. I'll start here by telling you what I want to accomplish tonight. I love the Old Testament for this reason. I think that it's not an unusual thing for us when we come to this section of the Old Testament in our daily Bible reading to say, now make for me the ark. And you just read through this and look at verse 12. I'll just give you an example. You shall cast 4 rings of gold for it, put them on the 4 feet, 2 rings on the outside, 2 rings on the other side, make poles of acacia wood. It describes all the different pieces of the tabernacle, and it's like, this is where I read faster than I've ever read before, because my reading is like, okay, ark, psh, table over, psh, and it's like, but here's the thing about that. I know that it can get cumbersome to read all of this stuff, but this is like real life stuff for us. And I might even encourage you to think of it like this. The stuff that we're reading about right here in this section of the Bible that seems a little bit dreary and cumbersome and it's long and it just goes on and on, it's actually what we're doing right now. Think about that. This is the principle that we're looking at as we read through this section. Go back to chapter 25 and verse 2. Speak to the people of Israel that they may take for me a contribution from every man whose heart moves him. You shall receive the contribution for me. And then in verse 8, let them make me a sanctuary that I may dwell in their midst. And so here's the principle that we're pointing towards with this. God says to his people, build me a house. And the way that he says, build me a house, is you bring your gold, you bring your silver, you bring your purple stuff, you bring your blue stuff, you bring your skills to do this, and you have skills over here, and you have skills over here, so we're going to need you, and we're going to need you. And everybody come, and I love this part too. You'll see this a couple of different times. You're going to see this phrase over and over again, which is, this is very different, because when you read through the Old Testament, oftentimes the laws and the tithes and the temple tax, what becomes called the temple tax, these are not optional things. But this is what God says to his people. He says in verse 2, from every man whose heart moves him. So Moses says, we're going to build a house for God. And what I'm asking from you is that you contribute what you have towards making this house. And he goes so far as to say, I'm not making you bring anything. You're not forced. This is not one of those situations where if you want to be right with God, you have to bring this much of your stuff. Whoever's heart moves him. If you would like to be a part of building up God's house and contributing what we need in order to build up God's house, come one, come all. Bring your stuff. We're going to do it. And so here's the instructions. You come to chapter 31. We'll skip all of the specifics of how they're supposed to read it. Chapter 31, let's read verses 1 through 6. So we've come to the end of, this is what you bring, this is who the priests are going to be, this is the clothes that the priests are going to wear, but we're going to need material to make the clothes for the priest. Somebody's got to offer that. Chapter 31, verse 1. The Lord said to Moses, see, I have called by name Bezalel the son of Uri and Hur of the tribe of Judah. And I have filled him with the Spirit of God, with ability and intelligence, with knowledge and all craftsmanship, to devise artistic designs, to work in gold, silver, and bronze, in cutting stones for setting, and in carving wood, to work in every craft. And behold, I have appointed with him Aholiab, the son of, I don't know how to say that name, of the tribe of Dan. And this verse is, for this reason that we're talking about right now, this verse is highlighted in my Bible, the next part. And I have given to all able men ability that they may make all that I have commanded you. So you see what's happening here in this context? We're reading a story about the tabernacle, but do you understand? We're not really reading about the tabernacle at this point. It's God saying, build me a house. How are we going to build your house? What are we going to use to build your house? You're going to bring something, you're going to bring something, you're going to bring something. And when everybody brings their stuff, we'll have enough stuff. But we're slaves. We're coming out of Egypt. How are we going to do it? God says, I've given you the ability to do the stones. I've given you the ability. He specifically says, it's almost like miraculous what he's talking about. You have the ability. Every man has ability to do a part of this great work, to build my house. And so the people have this instruction. Now we're going to pause for just a minute, because in chapter 32 we have the golden calf incident. Moses breaks the tablets. Chapter 34, he renews the covenant with the people. Okay, let's have a reset. And then in chapter 35, we're going to get down to the business of building the tabernacle. So let's start in 35 and verse 4. Moses said to all the congregation of the people of Israel, this is the thing that the Lord has commanded. Take from among you a contribution to the Lord. Here it is again. Whoever is of a generous heart, let him bring the Lord's contribution. Gold, silver, bronze, blue, purple, scarlet yarns, fine twisted linen, goat's hair, tanned ram skin, goat skin, acacia wood. Whenever you read through this section of the scripture and you're like, oh, that's a list, and it's like, let's skip over these verses. I don't need to know all the stuff. Here's what you can be thinking about that we're eventually going to get to in this lesson tonight. Jay has something to bring that Kevin does not. And Paula has something to bring that Mark does not. And so you read through this list and it's like, you have something, you have something, you have something, you have something. Everybody bring your stuff. Verse 10, let every skillful craftsman among you come and make all that the Lord has commanded. Maybe you don't have any gold to bring, but maybe you have ability that I don't have. This morning, speaking of ability that I don't have, I was told multiple times, you can replace the cylinder on your storm door, right? Like it'll close nice and easy. And I always think after these things, I'm like, the things that people take away from my sermon are never the things that I want them to take away from my sermon. But the moral of the story is, clearly, lots of you have abilities that I don't have with storm doors. And that's the thing. Like, there's lots of abilities. Everybody bring your ability. Everybody bring your stuff. Let's see. Chapter 35 and verse 20. Chapter 35 and verse 20. Let's read verses 20 through 29. Then all the congregation of the people of Israel departed from the presence of Moses, and they came, everyone whose heart stirred him, there it is again, everyone whose spirit moved him, and brought the Lord's contribution to be used for the tent of meeting, and for all its service, and for the holy garments. There's a lot of work to be done. There's lots of people who can do different aspects of it. 22, so they came. This might be worth highlighting or underlining in your Bible. Pay attention to this one. 22, so they came, both men and women, all who are of a willing heart. Brought brooches, earrings, signet rings, armlets, all sorts of gold objects. Every man dedicated an offering of gold to the Lord, and everyone who possessed blue or purple or scarlet yarns or fine linen or goat's hair or tanned ram skin, goat skin brought them. Everyone who could make a contribution of silver or bronze brought it as the Lord's contribution. And everyone who possessed acacia wood of any use in the work brought it. And every skillful woman spun with her hands. And they all brought what they had spun in blue and purple and scarlet yarns and fine twined linen. And all the women, this is like the third or fourth time now that even the women are included in this list. Everybody has something to contribute towards building up God's house. All of these people, 26, all the women whose hearts stirred them to use their skill spun the goat's hair. And the leaders brought onyx stones, stones to be set for the ephod, for the breastplate, spices and oil for the light, for the anointing oil, for the fragrant incense. All the men and women, the people of Israel, whose hearts moved them to bring anything for the work that the Lord had commanded by Moses to be done, brought it as a free will offering to the Lord. That's one of the things that this is the spot where I'll just say, up to this point, those whose hearts stirred them, those who have a generous heart. It's all summarized under this. It's a free will offering. If you want to bring something and offer it to God, bring it. That's what a free will offering is. We're going to do that now. Look at chapter 36, verses 2 through 7. And Moses called Bezalel and Aholiab and every craftsman in whose mind the Lord had put skill, everyone whose heart stirred him up to come to do the work. And they received from Moses all the contribution that the people of Israel had brought for doing the work of the sanctuary. They still kept bringing him free will offerings every morning, so that all the craftsmen who were doing every sort of task on the sanctuary came, each from the task that he was doing, and said to Moses, "The people bring much more than enough for doing the work that the Lord has commanded us to do." So Moses gave command, and word was proclaimed throughout the camp, "Let no man or woman do anything more for the contribution for the sanctuary." So the people were restrained from bringing, for the material they had was sufficient to do all the work and more. Think about what we're reading about here. Imagine if such a thing happens in our world today. Hey, everybody, we'll read about this whenever we turn over to Corinthians just now. Hey, everybody, we have a task set before us to build God's house. That's what we're doing. And it's not something that I can do. It's not something that Ed can do. We have to build God's house. And the only way we're going to be able to do this thing is if you bring your stuff and you bring your stuff and you bring your stuff and you have skills and you have skills and you have skills. We all need to put our stuff together. And what if, just imagine a situation like this. Everybody was so excited and so eager to join in and participate and make contribution towards building up God's house that the elders had to say, "All right, everybody, stop. We have too much right now. We have too much and not enough people, not enough things to do with all the stuff that we have. You need to dial your efforts back just a little bit because it's too much right now." That's the story that we're reading about here. And the end of the story, since we're close, I think it's worth looking at since we're here. Chapter 40 and verse 34, when they finish building up God's house, the cloud covered the tent of meeting, and the glory of the Lord filled the tabernacle. Once the people had built this house for God and everybody jumped in and did their part, this is a thing that ultimately houses and, attempts to house and reflects God's glory to the entire world around them. So just a real quick summary. I've said a bunch of these things, but here's a list of what we looked at. Everybody sees value in the project. We're building God's house. Everybody participates and gives what they have. Some people give their stuff. Some people give their abilities, but everybody gives something, men and women. There's no arm twisting in this. It's a free will offering. All who have a generous heart, all who want to participate. And there's so much willingness that they ultimately have to be stopped because at the end there's too much. In the New Testament, this thing that we're talking about right now is called edification in the King James Bible. It's not really one of those words that you see in, you'll see it a couple times in your New American Standard Version. I'm not sure you're going to see it. I did look at this, but I forgot the results. I don't think you're going to find this word in your ESV at all. Which is kind of funny to me because edification is one of those old King James words that has really hung in there. This is a word that most of us use even though it's not even in my Bible right now. The word edification, though, is a word, you can think about it here in just a second. Edification is the word that edifice comes from. You're going to build an edifice. That's the way that you're going to see it in your ESV. to build up. That's the way that we're going to see. As I read through the passages, the things that I searched for that we're going to be reading about in Corinthians whenever we get there, we're looking for the word to build up. And even this would be something worth knowing. So edification is reflective of the word edifice, to build an edifice. The word is oikodomeo, so the domeo is the word that you have a domicile. Is that how you say it? Domicile or domicile? A home. To build up the home is edification. This is just one definition from the Low Night lexicon. This is what we're doing. Edification, to build up, to increase the potential of someone or something with focus upon the process involved, to strengthen, to make more able, to build up. What we've done as we come here tonight, today, this morning, every time we come here, and hopefully every day as we talk to each other and encourage one another, what we're doing is we're building each other up, ultimately working towards building the Lord's church, participating in building God's house. Look at 1 Corinthians 3. 1 Corinthians chapter 3. I'm going to limit our study tonight to, I have 1 Corinthians and Ephesians. Probably Ephesians is going to get cut, just for the sake of time. But 1 Corinthians is the first place that I go whenever I think about this building up. It's really convenient. Starting in verse 5, in verses 5 through 10, the letter that Paul wrote to the Corinthians starts with, here's what we're doing. We're building up God's house. 1 Corinthians 3, starting in verse 5. What then is Apollos? What is Paul? Servants through whom you believed, as the Lord assigned to each. I planted, Apollos watered, but God gave the growth. That's what we're talking about. I planted, Apollos watered. Everybody has a job to do. And there's not one person who can do all the jobs. I planted, Apollos watered, God gave the growth. So neither he who plants nor he who waters is anything, but only God who gives the growth. He who plants and he who waters are one, and each will receive his wages according to his labor. For we are God's fellow workers. You are God's field. You are God's building. So this whole imagery, he says, we all have a job towards building up God's building, God's house. Verse 10, according to the grace of God given to me like a skilled master builder, I laid a foundation, someone else is building upon it. Let each one take care how he builds upon it. So we have a project set before us. We're going to build up God's house. And since we're in chapter 3, you might just look down at verse 16. It's a really important project. It's God's house. And what happens in God's house? God lives there. Verse 16, do you not know that you are God's temple and that God's Spirit dwells in you? That's our task, to build up God's house. Turn over to chapter 12 with me, please. 1 Corinthians chapter 12. I really debate reading this whole thing. In my notes, I have to read verses 4 through 30. And I hesitate just a little because that's a long reading to do in a setting like this. But it's our Sunday night service, so let's go for it. 1 Corinthians chapter 12, starting in verse 4. Verse 4. Now there are varieties of gifts, but the same Spirit. And there are varieties of service, but the same Lord. And there are varieties of activities, but it is the same God who empowers them all in everyone. Doesn't that sounds, I bet if you set that next to our Exodus language, it sounds exactly like the stuff that we just read a few minutes ago with the tabernacle. 7. To each is given the manifestation of the Spirit for the common good. I'm going to keep emphasizing that as we go through here. I don't have my abilities, whatever abilities they happen to be. Mark doesn't have his abilities for Mark, for me. God gave abilities for the common good. I gave you this thing so that you can use it towards my end, towards my work. Verse 8. For to one is given through the Spirit the utterance of wisdom, to another the utterance of knowledge according to the same Spirit, to another faith by the same Spirit, to another gifts of healing by one Spirit, to another the working of miracles, to another prophecy, to another the ability to distinguish between spirits, to another various kinds of tongues, to another interpretation of tongues. All these are empowered by one and the same Spirit, who apportions to each one individually as he wills. Verse 12. For just as the body is one and has many members, and all the members of the body, though many, are one body, so it is with Christ. The one body and many members, you're going to see this in a minute, but I want to make sure we're all thinking the same thing. Here's one body, but it's made up of lots of things. Fingers, hands, arms, ears, nose. Lots of members, one body. Verse 13. For in one Spirit we were all baptized into one body, Jews, Greeks, slaves, free. All were made to drink of one Spirit. For the body does not consist of one member, but many. If the foot should say, because I am not a hand, I do not belong to the body, that would not make it any less a part of the body. I'm going to stop here. Maybe you're sitting here thinking to yourself, but I don't have any gold or goat's hair to contribute towards building up God's house. And I don't know how to install or change the cylinder on a storm door. Like, I don't know how to do this stuff. I'm not a good song leader. I'm not a good whatever. You're a part of the body. And what Paul just said is, you don't get to say, oh, I'm not that important part of the body. He says, that would not make it any less a part of the body. You're still a part of the body, is the moral of the story. 16. If the ear should say, because I am not an eye, I do not belong to the body, that would not make it any less a part of the body. If the whole body were an eye, where would the sense of hearing be? If the whole body were an ear, where would be the sense of smell? But as it is, God arranged the members of the body, each one of them as he chose. If all were a single member, where would the body be? As it is, there are many parts, yet one body. We need all kinds of different stuff and abilities and men and women to build up God's house. It's the same. This is the same story. Just different language and a different picture, different context. 21, the eye cannot say to the hand, I have no need of you. Nor again the head to the feet, I have no need of you. On the contrary, the parts of the body that seem to be weaker are indispensable. And on those parts of the body that we think less honorable, we bestow the greater honor, and our unpresentable parts are treated with greater modesty. I'm thinking about the Jewish people and their work building up the temples for Pharaoh and their pyramids and all this stuff, and they had to make blocks, The sand was important in that process. Somebody had to bring the sand. If you don't have any sand, then you don't have any process. Everybody is necessary. And in fact, I'm just going to read it out of the Bible again so you don't think I'm just up here saying things, to make you feel good about yourself. God said it himself. He said, those things that seem weaker are indispensable. We can't do without any single part of this process and the body. Every person is necessary. 24. Which our more presentable parts do not require. God has so composed the body, giving greater honor to the part that lacked it, that there may be no division in the body, but that the members may have the same care for one another. If one member suffers, all suffer together. If one member is honored, all rejoice together. If you're thinking about the body imagery, if you stomp on my toe, I don't say, sorry for you, toe, bad luck. My whole body is, ah! It affects everything. Everything goes together. 27. Now you are, this is the point. You are the body of Christ, and individually members of it. And God has apportioned in the church, first apostles, second prophets, third teachers, miracles, gifts of healing, helping. That's one of the things that God, like apostles. Yeah, apostles. We need the apostles. Good. Helping is on the list. Most of us can do that, but some of us are really good at it. Some of you are really good at it. Helping is on the list. Administrating. Somebody's got to keep track of everything, and it's not going to be me doing that job. Various kinds of tongues. Are all apostles? Are all prophets? Are all teachers? Do all work miracles? Do all possess gifts of healing? Do all speak with tongues? Do all interpret? Earnestly desire the higher gifts. In chapter 13, he says, and here's the most important thing in this entire list, love. That's your summary for chapter 13, so we don't have to read it. Chapter 14 in verses 2 through 5. For one who speaks in a tongue speaks not to men, but to God, one who understands him, but he utters mysteries in the Spirit. On the other hand, I'm here because of the word edification, build up. The one who prophesies speaks to people for their upbuilding. There's our word. For their upbuilding and encouragement and consolation. This whole thing is to build up God's house. You. And encourage, build up, shore up, consolation, make sure everything is whole and the way it should be. Verse 4, the one who speaks in a tongue builds up himself, but the one who prophesies builds up the church. Now I want you to all speak in tongues, but even more to prophesy. The one who prophesies is greater than the one who speaks in tongues unless someone interprets. Why? So that the church may be built up. There's our word. 2 more verses, and then we'll get to the point. Verse 12. So with yourselves, since you are eager for the manifestation of the Spirit, strive to excel in building up the church. Adam did an invitation on that not too long ago. It's the picture from Exodus where everybody is so eager and excited to come and participate in building up God's house. That's what this passage is. We strive to excel. Excel still more in building up the church. Verse 26. This is the last one. What then, brothers? When you come together, each has a hymn, a lesson, a revelation, a tongue, an interpretation. Let all things be done for building up. Okay, you get the point. I was going to do the same thing in Ephesians. Ephesians has a really long section about this too, but that's probably enough for now. I want to talk about some things that we can be thinking about. I'll talk about myself first. In each one of these things, I'll try not to just tell you what the thing is, but why the thing is, why I'm thinking about it at this moment. I think my biggest weakness as a preacher is the application. It has been from the very start. I can handle the Bible. Like when it comes to sitting down, what does this thing say, and I need to teach it, I think I can handle that part. You might disagree, but at least in my own head, that's where I am. I can handle the Bible part. But I go through the Bible, this is what it says, this is what it means, but the third part of Bible study, what does it mean for me? That's where I really struggle. Like that's the hardest part of every lesson that I put together. Just for me. I'm sure that some people, like that's just the natural thing, and the first 2 parts are hard for them, but... And I tell Mark this all the time. I think Mark has a has a skill for that thing. Mark is always like, here we are in Bible class, and Mark tells some story about French fries from Five Guys, and it's like, oh yeah, that makes perfect sense now. That's not what I'm going to ever come up with. You're never going to hear that from me. That's not the thing that I do. And so I'm getting ready. Rob's got one more class on Sunday morning. Ed's got 2 more James classes, and then I'm going to start teaching. And we're going to be talking about the church as God's family. And I have gone through and rewritten almost that whole class to leave space for conversation and give and take. And the reason why is not just because, oh, hey, won't it be fun to have comments in class? It's because here's what I will do. I'll say, here's the Bible. This is what it says. This is what it means. And I want to leave some space because when we're talking about family relationships, and the church is family, you all are going to have a million better applications and pictures of that than I'm ever going to come up with. And I think that's what we've been talking about here. We're coming together to build up God's house. And so the idea is come to class ready to participate, ready to share, because what you have is necessary and vital to what we're trying to accomplish. That's just one of the things that I've been thinking about. Another thing that I've been thinking about is our singing workshop that we're going to do at the end of April, the last weekend of April. And so this is what I would like. This is what I would like for our song leaders to consider. Okay, so you come up here to lead singing. You've done your work. You've prepared. You've put your service together. You come up here and you lead singing. And then you're done and service is over. I would like for everybody to just ask this question after it's over. Did I build up God's church in what I just did? The whole thing that we're looking at. It's a fair question. Did I build up God's church? Could I do better? Could I do more? Do I need to do something different? It's this whole process, and since we're talking about the process, I'm going to talk about myself again. And sorry, everybody, on this. I might be opening a door for you that you don't want to be opened. I'm going to speak for myself. I'll at least offer the opportunity for you on this. And Ed and Mark, sorry, too. Here's the thing about my work as a preacher. Do you know, I'm not trying to do like, oh, woe is me. That's not what this is. I want to tell you something that's really hard for me. I'll go for years at a time with no idea at all if what I'm doing is useful or beneficial to anybody. I mean, I often think, at least there's not complaining. You know, at least that's something. But it feels pretty, I'm not sure what the word is. It feels pretty empty sometimes to do my preparation and week after week to do my classes and to do my sermons and to stand up here and then think, I mean, was that beneficial? This is what I'm really looking for. What can I tweak? What do I need to do to change? Because I love you all, and I think that most of you love me back. And it's like, well, I don't want to hurt his feelings, you know. I don't want to say this, but I say all the time, like, I want to hear. Otherwise, if I don't hear, then I'm just floating around out there. And so I come home from a gospel meeting, and Becky says, how did the meeting go? And I say, I have no idea. Like, you don't ask me how the gospel meeting went. You have to ask the people who were there. I have no idea how the gospel meeting went. Think about that from a song leader's perspective. A song leader stands up here and leads singing, and, you know, nobody wants to say to that person, hey, maybe can we do this? Maybe can we do this a little bit different? But I mean, what's the alternative? Like, you're just floating around, never knowing if it's good or bad or right or wrong in the direction that we're going. And I think this is true for Ed and Mark. I'm just joking around when I talk about opening up Pandora's box here, but so often, they're just like, I hope this is working. Like, I hope we're moving in the right direction. There's no give or take or feedback. Nobody wants to criticize. Nobody wants to say anything positive or anything like that. I mean, we get lots of positive, but all of that is just to say this. If you think there's something I could do different or better that would build up God's house in a more effective way, I'm begging you to say that to me. And I assume that Ed and Mark are like, please, like, Ed, have you heard Ed stand up here whenever he talks about the building project? Hey, we need to figure out what we're going to do. And he says, it takes a lot of thought from all of us and a lot of prayer and a lot of conversation. Like, they want to hear what you have to say about this. And our song leaders sit down and it's like, well, what was that? Good. I hope I built up God's house. All of that just to say this. Do you realize that could be an important role that you have in helping to improve building God's house and offering the support or the feedback or the criticism, constructive and kind, given in love criticism. But criticism, giving. Look at Romans chapter 12 with me. Every time I talk about giving, I always feel like I have to say, I'm not asking anybody for a raise. We're not raising money for any capital projects or anything like that. That's not what this is. But in order to build up the tabernacle and to make everything out of gold, somebody had to bring the gold. In order to make everything out of blue and royal colors that are really expensive and hard to get, somebody had to bring those things. Look at this. Gifts that differ according to the grace given to us. Let us use them. Prophecy in proportion to our faith. Service. Maybe your ability that God has given you to build up his house is serving. And so you use that ability in proportion to your faith. I lost my spot. Let me find it again. Verse 6, prophecy, 7, service, 8. To the one who exhorts in his exhortation, to the one who contributes in generosity, and it doesn't really matter for anything. Text Joe Works and ask him if he cares about how he's going to pay for his groceries next week. Like the money that you put in the plate is supporting all of those men in the work that they do, and me. And it matters a lot. It's important for the work that we're doing. Prayer. The person who stands up here and prays. I'm going to say a prayer and I'm going to ask myself at the end of that prayer, did I build up God's house? The cleaning list on the back wall. I think there's some stuff on the second half of the year, but I was talking to, I don't remember who it was, maybe Luke Heisley, I don't remember. We were talking about the cleaning list back there. You might think, signing up one time to come and clean the building. Think about this. Have you ever considered this? Do you know how much money we save as a congregation by not paying a cleaning service? To come in, and you come on a Friday and you give one Friday of the year, a couple Fridays a year, to come and clean the building, and we don't have to pay for a cleaning service, and now we've got this extra, I don't know how many $1,000s that we can use towards building up God's church because of you volunteering to participate in that. You see what I'm talking about? Every part matters. Every part matters, and so this is where we'll end. These are the questions. This is the summary piece of this. For every single person who's here, are you willingly, nobody's twisting your arm here. Like this is a free will offering. Are you willingly doing what you can to build up God's house? Is there something else or something more that you could be doing to build up God's house? Is there something you could do to improve your efforts I'm not talking about what you pull out of your pockets. To share what you have, your ability. Imagine if there was so much that Ed and Mark had to get up here one Sunday and say, hey, everybody, let's tap the brakes. There's too much right now. We just got to stop until we can get. Imagine something like that. Like, that's what the Exodus picture was. Are you doing all that you can to help build up God's house? That's the thing for us to think about in this lesson. If you're here today and you're not a Christian, at the end of this lesson, I would like for you to consider one last thing about what Christianity is. God's house is a temple made up of different bricks, and each one of us, including you, are a brick in that house. And so the question that you would ask if you're here tonight and you're not a Christian is, am I helping to build up God's house? The question would be, am I a part of that house? And how can I be a part of that house? And I'm ready. I want to be a part of that house. And if that's the case and you know what you need to do, we'd like to help you with that tonight. Come forward as we stand and sing the invitation song.